The sun sagged low over the Texas plains, turning the horizon into liquid copper. Jonah Hale rode slow, coat heavy with dust, his mare limping from miles of silence. The war had ended, but peace never found him. Every dry wind carried ghosts, smoke, gunpowder, faces he couldn't forget. At Red River Crossing, he spotted a wagon leaning against a dying cottonwood, its wheels half buried, canvas torn, and tied to one of those wheels a woman. Her arms stretched above her, wrists chafed raw, long black hair tangled with sand, lips cracked from thirst. For a heartbeat he thought she was gone. Then she moaned, soft as the last breath of a dying bird. Jonah dismounted, knife steady in his calloused hand, and cut her free. She slumped into his arms, light, fevered, breathing shallow. He lifted her onto his horse, wrapped her in his coat, and turned toward the fading sun. He didn't ask who she was, nor what chain of cruelty had left her here. He only knew the land didn't forgive indifference, and for once, neither would he. By the time Jonah reached his cabin, dusk had turned the desert violet. He laid her near the hearth, fed the fire until it roared and filled a tin cup of water. She drank like one half dreaming, her dark eyes reflecting flame and mistrust. He cleaned her wrists, careful as a preacher handling scripture. She watched him, silent, jaw set against pain. Her skin burned with fever. When he tried to speak, she turned her face away, whispering words in Apache he couldn't understand. For 3 nights she drifted between sleep and delirium. Once she woke screaming a name, Sahale. He thought it was a plea, not her name, until the 4th morning when her voice steadied and she said, "That's me." He nodded. "Jonah Hale." Her eyes narrowed. "I know that name. You were with the Bluecoats." He froze. The truth sat between them like a snake in the firelight. "Once," he said quietly. She turned her face to the wall. "Then we are both ghosts." Jonah dreamed of fire. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw that night again. The raid, the chaos, the women running through burning grass. When he woke, Sahale sat by the window, watching the dawn bleed across the horizon. "You remember it too," she said softly. He didn't answer. Instead, he poured coffee, his hand trembling. "I can't undo what I was, but I can be something else now." Sahale's voice carried no anger, only exhaustion. "You can't change smoke, Jonah. Once it's in your lungs, it stays." Still, she didn't leave. She ate the bread he baked, drank his coffee, fixed the latch on the door. She didn't forgive him, but she didn't curse him either, and somehow that felt like mercy. Each day she moved with purpose, tending the horse, sweeping the porch. He began to speak again, small things, weather, fences, the way silence sometimes felt like company. By the end of that week, the cabin no longer felt haunted, just inhabited by 2 souls too stubborn to die. Spring wind carried the scent of sage and far-off rain. Sahale's color returned, though her eyes stayed watchful. She spoke little, but her actions spoke plenty. When Jonah split wood, she stacked it. When he patched his fence, she held the nails. Once she caught him watching her hum an old river song. "What does it mean?" he asked. "It means," she said after a pause, "that the river forgets no footprints." He didn't press further. That night she mended the rip in his coat, same coat that carried the stains of a soldier's life. Slowly, their silence softened. Jonah found himself telling stories he hadn't spoken aloud in years, about his mother's garden, about the girl he'd lost to fever. Sahale listened, eyes unreadable. He offered her a silver cross once. She refused it gently. "I don't need saving," she said. "Only space to breathe." He nodded, ashamed of what the gesture meant, that even in kindness, men like him had a habit of claiming what didn't belong to them. Still, she stayed, not because she trusted him, but because she trusted the quiet between them. It was the stillness that warned him first. No birds, no wind, just silence pressing down on the land. Jonah stepped onto the porch, squinting toward the hills. A thin column of smoke twisted into the sky. Not campfire smoke, but signal smoke. Sahale joined him, her face pale. "They found me." He reached for his rifle. "Then I'll keep you safe." She shook her head. "You can't stop them." "I can try." She turned to face him fully. "If you die fighting them, you die proving them right." Jonah stared at her, this woman who'd once been his enemy, now standing in his doorway like judgment itself. He set the rifle down. Then we meet them standing. By late afternoon, the horizon shimmered with movement, 20 riders in war paint and silence. Sahale's breath caught, but she didn't step back. Jonah moved beside her, no weapon in hand, just resolve carved into his stance. Whatever happened next would be written in both their names. The riders came at dusk, the sun dying blood-red over the riverbed. At their head rode Chief Woken, tall, silver-haired, his face carved from grief. He dismounted, eyes locked on his daughter. "You live," he said. "I do," she answered. He turned his gaze to Jonah, "And by whose mercy?" Jonah stepped forward, not mercy, guilt. His eyes darkened. "You were there, the fire, the screams. You took everything." Jonah didn't flinch. "I did, and I can't undo it." A warrior raised his rifle. Woken lifted a hand, but tension rippled like heat. Then Sahale stepped between them. "No," she said. Her voice cracked the silence. "If you kill him, you burn what's already ash." She faced her father. "He saved me, not as debt, as choice. If I let you take vengeance now, I become the thing you hate." She knelt, placing her palm on the scorched soil. "Let the earth remember mercy for once." Woken's jaw tightened. Slowly, he turned his horse. "Then mercy it is."
When they rode away, the wind finally moved again.
The sky broke that night, releasing rain that hadn't fallen in months. Jonah sat on the porch, watching water streak through the dust. Sahale stood beside him, head tilted back, letting the drops wash over her face. "You stopped them," he said quietly. "I stopped myself," she replied. "Hate doesn't end, it just changes hands." He nodded. "Still, I owe you my life." She looked at him, expression unreadable. "You owe me nothing. But you could make coffee." He laughed for the first time in years, rough and real. She smiled, a small, fleeting thing, but honest. The rain fell harder, drumming against the roof. Two people who had every reason to despise each other sat side by side, saying nothing more. In that moment, neither was soldier nor captive, just survivors, waiting for the world to soften. Weeks turned to months. The land greened where the rain had kissed it. Jonah's ranch came back to life, fences straight, wells deep, the orchard blooming again. Sahale worked beside him without being asked, her laughter rare but worth the wait. They didn't talk about the war, or her father, or the fire. They talked about small things, planting seasons, stubborn horses, the beauty of quiet mornings. One evening, Jonah found her watching the sunset. "You ever think about leaving?" he asked. She shook her head. "Leaving is for those still running. I've stopped." When he reached for her hand, she didn't pull away. "Then maybe we both have." That night they ate in silence, not out of habit, but peace. The ghosts were still there, but softer now, like distant thunder after the storms passed. Years later, travelers crossing Red River tell of a small ranch glowing warm at night, a single lantern burning by the window no matter how dark the plains get. They speak of Jonah Hale, once a soldier, now a man reborn through quiet work, and of Sahale, the woman who turned his shame into mercy. Some say they married, others that they simply shared a life without needing vows. Either way, the story always ends the same, with light, the kind that doesn't blind, only guides. When strangers pass, Sahale leaves water on the porch, Jonah waves from the gate, and the world feels less cruel for a moment. The wild hasn't changed, it never does. But within that wild, something gentler took root. And so the river, once red with blood, runs clear again, carrying the memory of two souls who dared to forgive what the desert tried to forget.